Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the RGM Experience podcast with me, Carl Maloney. Delving into the grassroots music industry and beyond. It's a podcast that has honest opinions about what it's really like in this bloody music industry of ours. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm actually absolutely thrilled to be joined by a legend of the music industry today, Huey Morgan. And I do have to say this specifically, a Fun Lovin Criminal.
Well, yeah, I mean, for legal reasons, because those two other scumbags went behind my back and copyrighted the name while I was still in the fucking band.
Yeah.
What assholes, right? Yeah, but you know, it is what it is, man. But yeah, I'm known as the Fun Lovin Criminal, right? I mean, if you think Fun Lovin Criminals, who do you think about?
Think about you.
You don't think about, yeah, you think about me. So there we go.
Well, I did want to ask you about that because we're at RGM, the magazine that I run and own. We featured the Fun Lovin Criminals. We covered them at a gig once, and you sent us a tweet saying, those fraudsters and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, oh no, I think I've upset Huey Morgan a little bit. I didn't want to do that.
No, you didn't upset me, man. The way I look at it is when it first went down, those guys were trying to manipulate my mental health and my alcohol dependency into a outburst. You know, they wanted this calculated outburst so they could go, see, this is why we wanted to get rid of this fucking guy, and he's such a bad dude. And I knew that's what they were doing. So when they did all that stuff and announced my departure and all that kind of bullshit, I just laid low. I realized that that's what they were trying to do. And, you know, to be quite honest, at the same time, I felt completely betrayed and like devastated by the way those guys would do that to me, man, especially after the 20 some odd years that I carried them around. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So are they all original members then in that other group?
No, there's only one guy who was in the original band. The two guys from Leicester, and there's the keyboard player running around pretending to be me, which is ridiculous. He mumbles all the lyrics. He doesn't even know the stories correctly. The guy's a fucking moron.
Well, you are well known for your honest opinions and thoughts, and that's
well. You just opened up the podcast saying we talk honestly about shit. So let's talk honestly about shit. I'll be quite honest with you. I'm not bitter about it, but just the way they did it, like, and they didn't even speak to me. That's like the most fucked up part of it, is that they blocked me, my phone, they blocked my email, they blocked me on social media. They thought like I'd just go away or some shit. And then, you know, about a year and a half ago, I got an email from Alan McGee saying, yeah, I ran into these two fucking jerk offs and they were trying to get me to manage them. And I was like, well, where's the guy who's the actual guy, the talent in the band? And then they got to me about it. And I was like, he's like, do you want to come out and make music again? I was like, fuck yeah, I do. Yeah. It was about time. I was on a long road of reflection and redemption, and it seemed like it was time to come back.
Yeah, mate. Well, we had Alan on the show a couple of years ago, and his commitment to particularly new music still to this day is just, you know, you can't question that, can you? You can never question his commitment to music. That lad is,
he lives and breathes it, man. That's the dude right there.
Yeah. So you're managed by the Alan McGee. So how's that?
It's really cool. Him and his partner Kevin are exceptional dudes. You know, they come from an understanding of the music business that's probably pretty singular. You know what I mean? I don't think many people know the intricacies of how everything works as well as Alan does. I mean, he was a label boss, he was a manager. I mean, shit, on every level as well, you know.
No, so what have you learned recently from Alan then? What did you pick up from him from, you know, taking
patience, man, patience, bro.
Okay,
patience. Yeah, I don't think he was trying to teach me patience,
right.
but I think the idea behind what I'm trying to do involves, like I said, the convergence is happening now, but for a year we were trying to put all the pieces together. And of course I'd like to go back out and do what I did at the same level, but you can't. You have to reintroduce yourselves to people. So last autumn I decided to go on a one-man tour around the country, just me and a guitar, talking about my life and, you know, just explaining to people where I've been and what I'm doing and why I haven't been around for a while. And that went great. And that was a really great way to reintroduce myself to people. You talk about grassroots, homie. I was going playing 200, 300 seat joints all around the country, literally talking to people, having the best time, telling stories. We did like the first 45 minutes of me telling my life story and bits and bobs about that. And then the second, you know, interval was everybody asking me questions, and it got really raucous and hilarious. So that kind of set me up to think, man, you know what? There is something behind this live music shit. And it was a connection that I made with people. And going back to when I was a kid, like a young kid, just getting into music because, you know, I had, really crazy feelings of abandonment from my father leaving my mother and I was looking for a place to fit in, and music was it. And the music allowed me to make connections with people. And, that's what I was trying to do as a young kid, really alienated from the rest of what was going on. It seemed like that was the thing I needed to do. So you fast forward 50 years or whatever, and here we are talking about me making those same connections again. But I still think it's important to do it on a personal level. Like you can't just come out with a press release and go play the O2. You know what I mean? You have to explain to people where you've been, why you've been away, and what you've been up to. And like most artists, which is kind of interesting to talk about artists in this day and age. A lot of times, in my case anyway, my first album took me 27 years to write. My second album took me about 9 months to write. And then it got probably the time spans got shorter as the record cycles got tighter. And within that, you don't really have a whole lot of time to live life, to reflect, especially reflect emotions and situations to people who live everyday lives. You're going to be removed from all that. So what I think was really cool was this time that I had to recalibrate myself to be an artist of the people rather than, I don't know, an artist for the charts or an artist for the money or whatever the people call it, man. But a worker. It's better to be an artist than a worker. And there's this amazing keyboard player, piano player named Roberto Fonseca from Cuba. And he's a dear friend of mine. And I was hanging with him in Havana a couple of years back. And he was telling me, he was like, yo, it's important to make that distinction between worker and musician and artist. And I really keep that in the forefront of my mind, especially with the endeavors I'm doing now.
Yeah, well, you've got this big tour coming up that will come to in May that we're all excited about.
Man, it's not a big tour. That's like a little tour compared to what I used to do. It's like, what, 30 dates? Man, I used to go leave New York and come back 3 seasons later, man. My dog's old when I get back.
Well, it's lovely to speak to somebody that's been through it and lived life through the music industry, really. And I don't.
Well, it's perspective. I'm really excited about the tour. It's going to be great. We're playing all these amazing venues up and down the UK. I get to go into Scotland and Wales a little bit more than I usually do, which is great. And I learned that from going and doing these one-man shows, that it's important to go to places where people are. And that's the thing I think music doesn't do. It doesn't meet people where they're at. It sets a waypoint. Yeah. And either you get to that waypoint, which means you understand the music and get down with it, or you don't, which means you don't. And I think a lot of times we forget that, art is a two-way street.
There does seem to be a little bit of a disconnect with music and people at the minute, particularly just with the price of tickets and all the fraudulent fucking charges that are on tickets these days through Ticketmaster and all the rest of them. Hustling.
Well, look, man, I'm dynamically pricing a bunch of shit right now when I'm talking to you.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was a little shady. But look, man, it's not like you didn't think that this shit was going to be a huge, big operation when those homies got back together. It was going to be the Goliath of the music industry. You know what it feels like? It feels like that scene from, was it The Life of Brian? Where they have the two big businesses that look like buildings, but they're ships, and they converge on each other, and there's this big war, and it's like all the office workers shooting file cabinets into the other one. That's kind of what it is when you get all those big conglomerates together to make a tour to work. It's how it is, man.
Yeah, but hovering underneath all of that is the real people, and they're the people you're looking to speak to the most, then I presume now.
Yeah, man. It is one of those things where. But also, like we talk about, people remove themselves from a situation. I think a lot of what becoming popular in music are what, like those two brothers were talking about inadvertently, called being a rock star. And that's kind of removing yourself from where you came from, setting yourself in Regent's Park, yelling at photographers, flicking cigarettes at dummies, that kind of shit. But that's not what being a musician is. That's what being an obnoxious person rock star is, and I've seen all types of people. I'm not saying those guys are that. As a matter of fact, I like those two guys a lot. But I think what we have going on a lot of the time is there are a lot of people that just do it for and this is maybe this is a novel approach because of the advent of the internet and social media, but everybody's stunting for somebody or something that doesn't care about them.
Yeah. So who do you mean by those two guys?
I think we were talking about the dynamic pricing, about the Oasis show coming back, and the big conglomerate of the music industry, like, oh shit, we can make some money here, folks. And then, like you said, the people who actually really like Champagne Supernova are going to be charged 300 pounds to go see it fucking played live. That's all.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I went to see a couple of years ago at Breadshed in Manchester. I went to see a Q&A with Alan McGee. And those type of events are they're really special. You're one-on-one with these people that
Well, yeah.
create these things and they're themselves and they are there to purely connect and speak to the people direct one-on-one. It's a passionate it's a really amazing experience for us people that seen you on the telly all these years. My first experience seeing you live was at Glastonbury. I sneaked in one year many years ago on the main stage, man, and it's just like to have one-on-one with people like yourself and Alan McGee and all these other interesting people in the music industry. It's special for us, the music fans too.
Yeah, as a fan of music, that's the thing. I've never really separated myself from when I was a kid being an absolute fan of music. I'm still the same way. I get starstruck all the time when I meet people I do with my radio show. It's great. But look, remembering who I was, right, allows me to understand that. I think what happens is that people forget why they're making music and who they're making music for. It also takes authenticity and frankly balls to do these Q&As and one-man shows, because you're going into a place and I just drove in with my car and picked my guitar out of my trunk and walked in with an amp, and did it like that because I wanted people to feel that it was just me and them. It wasn't like my people behind me and a security guy and all this other shit, because it does make it seem like you're wrapping yourself in bubble wrap from people that you're supposed to be creating art for. You know what I mean? Or does that sound really pretentious?
No, I think it's just honest, isn't it? It's your experience of the world, and
yeah, I think most people, the people that I've come across in the music business who are the assholes, are the ones that they think they're doing everybody a favor. And that be the artists that think they're gracing us with these amazing songs, or the management that are greasing these gears to make it all happen, or promoters or whatever. It's the people that think they're doing everybody a favor are the problem.
Well, I can see you've definitely diversified over the years as well. You're a musician, you're back, radio, broadcast.
Yeah, I mean, I was full-time writing fiction up until about a year ago, man. That's what I do. I write books and shit. I'm about to put a book out, a memoir next year when the album comes out. It's going to be The Convergence,
Oh, brilliant. Well, that's I've just downloaded. I didn't get a chance since agreeing this interview thing, knowing it were happening to read it all yet. But the Rebel Heroes book.
Yes, that's a great book to start your musical journey with me on. Yeah, because it goes back to when I was a kid and why I thought people should make music and be compelled to make music.
Well, I can't wait to get through that. I'm going on holiday soon, so I've bought it to
listen. Dude, it's a good holiday. Oh, you have an audio book of it?
The audio version of it, yeah. I've got.
Oh yeah, so it's literally me reading you the book, bro.
So
you're gonna be like, oh shit, that's like the guy I was talking to 2 minutes ago with the curses and the does and everything.
Yeah, big time. But what struck me about the tagline on it is where you feel like music has started to lose its soul, and you're interested in learning the lessons of those renegade spirits of yesteryear.
Yeah.
So just talk us through your experience of investigating that side of things and
how the idea behind the book was pretty. It's a common thing that people have when they listen to old music. You're like, why and how did this happen? And I thought the idea of women in music is something that hasn't really been explored. So I spent a lot of time in the book talking about the original rock stars, which were these black women who were blues musicians in the South. And the reason why they were more popular than the men is because in the South at that period of time, black men in particular, were looked as threatening to white women and white men in the boogeyman kind of, Jim Crow kind of way that they had back in those days. So these women who were, obviously very talented at the same time as the men would be getting more of the gigs and therefore making more of the money and becoming, more famous than the male counterparts. So there's a real big part of the book in there. And it shows how some of these women were just extraordinary superhumans to do what they did. And then it goes into people who were, like I said, weren't doing it for the money because there was no money involved in this back in the day. It was like becoming I don't know, a gender studies major. There was no money in it, bro. You know what I mean? Like, you were going to get out of school and no one was going to care. The same thing here. You're going to be a blues musician. What the fuck for? To play some little chitlin circuit, make $300 a year? It was like one of those things. So the people that were doing it it was like a vocation, you know what I mean? It was almost at the level of someone becoming a priest or a rabbi or something, the dedication that they put towards that, right? And I thought that was a great way to explore the people that I loved in music. And I found a common theme throughout all of them, is that they were compelled to do it. They weren't doing it to be famous. They weren't doing it for money. They were doing it because they needed to do it. And that's kind of why I make music. There was a need for me to make connections as a young person. And that's what I'm trying to do still. And I wrote that book because I wanted to reinforce the theory of what I was doing.
Well, what I found interesting, where you've told the story loads of times just from just doing my research and stuff about how the band got together. You were working in a bar, and the story behind Scooby Snacks, Valium-induced bank job. You needed to look after yourself, and there was Valium passed around the club, and you were able to get a bit of stage time instead of being paid because you're in the building anyway when you first.
It's just a great story of how the band got together for sure. Yeah, it was a comedy of errors that worked to our advantage in the end. Yeah, we were in the right place at the right time, and they always say that luck is preparation meeting opportunity, and I think that was a lot what was happening. I had prepared my whole life to be a musician. I'd learned how to play all these different styles of music and produce them and work all these different pieces of equipment, and it wasn't something like I just kind of like woke up one day and was like, Scooby Snacks. But yeah, it's an amazing story of how all these things kind of happened.
Yeah, well, that story is being told. I'm interested in what your thoughts on are back home now. I know you live in the UK now, but what does New York mean to you now, looking back on it over all these years?
Well, New York's my hometown, man. I go back there as much as I can. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to go back next week.
Oh, nice.
It's my favorite time of year there. I might pull my kids out of school and go hang out for a little bit, eat some pizza. Uh, yeah. Being a New Yorker is a lot like being a person with a world passport. I grew up in a place that really didn't have an American identity per se. I mean, we're Americans and we're New Yorkers probably predominantly, but people came from all over the world. And that was kind of what informed my worldview early on. And when you have a worldview, especially living in America, it separates you from the rest of America. And we always thought that New York, or more precisely Manhattan, was the island next to America. So yeah, I mean, I go back there all the time. America's starting to get a little bit better. There's some lawless shit going on in New York City for the last couple of years that really made me feel unsafe bringing my kids there. And now hopefully that shit will turn, because you can't have people just running around like setting motherfuckers on fire in the subway and not getting arrested for it or not getting thrown out of the country for it. I mean, what the fuck? You have to have basic law and order. Otherwise, especially in New York City, you're going to have issues.
Well, I've had the pleasure of going to New York a few times over the years. The first time I went was just before 9/11. I went a few years after that again, to see the old place again. And I've been a couple of times with the missus since as well. The last time, just 6 months ago. And just it's such a romantic place. You've got to have your wits about you. People are harsh than what they are here in Manchester. Anyway, they seem to be looking for opportunities. It feels like, and the subway a little bit sketchy. When I went down there was somebody that was me and the missus. We were going down to see some comedy down at the Comedy Cellar. And we were on the tube, and somebody had smelt somebody smoking crack at side of him and kicked off, and it all got. It was just like, I presume that's like not a
It's not on, motherfucker. No, it's not on. You have to understand, man. Like, I grew up in a very liberal time in New York City. I'm a very liberal guy socially, but you can't. You have to hide if you're gonna smoke crack. I'm sorry. I don't care who you think you are or where you think you fucking are, but if you're trying to smoke crack in the subway, at least do it like at the end of the fucking platform where there's nobody around, man. I mean, have some fucking respect. But that's the thing. No one has any self-respect, and that just translates out from that. If you have no self-respect, no one else catches any respect. Come on.
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful town. I had a good drink.
Oh yeah, man. It's my baby, man.
So how do you reflect on how New York's developed over the years then?
Well, I think I look at it as an ongoing relationship that changes and evolves. I don't spend as much time there as I used to. Also, I don't go out at night as much as I used to. Yeah. I quit drinking about 4 years ago, so I'm not really out there boozing it at the clubs. I'm also too old to be out there at the clubs anyway, frankly, because we used to make fun of people my age out at the clubs. But, I go out to nice restaurants and things like that. But one of the things I found about New York is that it's getting very it's very getting very intermezzo. There's a lot of like there used to be like really nice places and then like really, really kind of dive crazy places that you'd like to go. And then there'd be like not many stuff in the middle, like intermezzo. Like, you know, when I mean that, I kind of mean it in a way where it's like chain restaurants and, you know, like normies everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Right. And I think New York has gotten to the point now that the middle, meaning the normies, all that stuff has gotten to be the biggest bandwidth. Right. So you don't see enough of the really nice stuff and you don't see enough of the really crazy stuff. But I just think that's because what happened in New York over the last 2 decades, just they voted for this shit. They voted for all this kind of like they voted for all this really kind of like liberal policing, and that's why the place is crazy now.
Yeah, just even like just seeing what I've seen, like people can get away with robbing up to $1,000 worth of stuff in
Yeah,
shop.
yeah, like yo, dude, man, like when I was a kid, if I took like a comic book from the shop on the corner and the cop caught me, he'd crack me upside my head, take the magazine and me, bring it back to the thing. I'd have to apologize to the dude at the store or something. And then he'd smack me in the back of the head on the way out of the store. Don't do fucking this again. And then you'd have like an idea of, oh yeah, see, this is what society is. We're all trying to live in here together. You know, we're not trying to, live here so you could just get you over on the side over there. That's the thing. What society was has kind of deteriorated over the years. I think in my case, I believe it because the way we all kind of find these communities in their digital space.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something it's at the forefront of my mind. I just finished reading this book by this author, Jonathan Haidt, who is a professor at NYU, and it's called The Anxious Generation. And I've got young kids. So that's probably why I'm veering the conversation this way. But I got a 13-year-old son about to be 14, and I got a 9-year-old girl about to be 30. So with those things in mind, I read this book, and it does show how there's whatever these algorithms are doing, and it's ironic that a lot of the people who started these companies who have children now don't allow their children to interact with these apps because the way these algorithms make these young minds kind of shape their comparison gene to everything around them, it loses a lot of the joy of being a young person and finding things out for yourself. Because if everybody's going to step in and ruin every little fucking thing for a person, it makes their life seem a little fucking shitty, And that's kind of what the social media stuff does. And I think that's what living your life digitally does. Because then when you come out into the real world, you haven't made any prep, you haven't done any kind of anything in your real life. And that's when people find themselves in situations where they don't care about other people because they don't care about themselves. And they're resentful. And most of the time people are resentful because they see somebody who made decisions that were in opposition to the decisions that person made. And they say, oh, if I'd made the decision that way, I wouldn't have been such a fucking schmuck. So I resent the person who made the decision they should have. It's weird. It's a crazy system we're living in right now. And I'm not encouraged.
And it's not going anywhere though. So what do we do? We just have to manage it.
Well, what's funny? It is going somewhere, but what happens is a lot of times when pendulums swing socially,
Yeah.
you get them going one way where you got like all the craziness that we saw over the last couple of years with all this BLM stuff, and you realize it was just a hustle for these activists in America to make money off of everybody's emotional distress at the inequality in the world, which is fucking rampant. And all these manipulative acts kind of put people in a really jaded situation where, they learn quickly. I think what's funny is if you go back to like when Hillary Clinton was running for president and she would do like 3 different talks a day. One she'd do in the South and she'd be like, hi, y'all, how y'all doing? And then she'd go up north and be like, hello, everybody. And then she'd go out to California and be like, hey, partner. And that would work if there wasn't something called the internet where people could see like, wow, she's just fucking straight pandering and full of shit. So when we see that over and over again, we realize what authenticity is. And it's rare, very fucking rare. And when you find somebody who's authentic, people gravitate towards that because they sense that it's different from all the 99% of the bullshit that they see and feel and hear in their regular day world. So I think with the pendulum swinging back towards this way being the way of the real and the way of the authentic, I think we could, maybe these things aren't going to go away, but they'll be put in perspective, enough perspective where, or maybe as Spinal Tap says, too much fucking perspective, but enough perspective where you gain some insight to what it actually is. And you don't think like, oh, wow, you know, these social media things are great. We get to look at all these wonderful beaches and girls in leggings and guitars and watches or whatever your feed is. But what it does is it removes you from being a participant in your life. You know, I do a lot of yoga and a lot of meditation stuff, and I've been doing it for a while. And one of the hardest things to do in yoga is nothing. And one of the hardest things to do in meditation is step back and be a witness to what your mind is doing. And when you do that, it's hard, fucking real hard to do. It takes you a long, long time to concentrate and to be able to even get to the idea where you think you might be able to do it. And it's hard. And like Freud says, thinking is hard. That's why most people judge. So that's the situation we're in now. But if the pendulum swings back, I mean, it might go as radically right as it has gone radically left, and we have to prepare for that and make adjustments. But it may not, you know. But I know that the pendulum's swinging back the other way, where I think common sense is starting to have more of a say, which is, I think, good.
I tend to live in a digital world quite a lot with a magazine, and I do try and tell myself to live in the moment more, you know, get out of the house more and, you know, just experience things without this fucking device in my pocket bothering me every 5 seconds. But
Well, yeah, because you're not going to be an old man on your deathbed going, "Shit, I should have argued with motherfuckers online more." You know, you wouldn't. It wouldn't be something you'd be coming up with. You know.
That's what I am always intrigued by the, you know, the progression of when people start being in a band and things start to progress, and you know, the mentality that goes behind the scenes with you guys. So just to rewind a little bit, you know, the band kicked off. I saw you at Glastonbury many years ago, and it was just amazing being in the big field and watching you on the big stages and things. You're on top of the pops. How did the life of a rock star suit you when things started to kick right off?
Well, you know, I just delivered the manuscript to a memoir that I've written about that period of time you're talking about. So the period of time I got out of the Marine Corps, and I was in New York City, homeless, with a hope of becoming a musician. And then the memoir takes up to the part that that people start to understand where we're coming from, start playing shows and making records and stuff. But that period of time, you know, I'd been a Marine. You know, I wasn't a kid. I wasn't some like 18-year-old joker out of high school, you know, with a foreigner poster on my wall. I mean, I went out into the world and became a man, you know. So when I got into the music business, I saw it for what it was, a big fucking cushy joke, you know. And I figured if I could make a record that was good enough to get out to people, because I knew that what I was doing was different, and I've got some guys around me that understood that we should be different, and that was good. And I figured if we could make a record, we can get it out and people would hear it, we can make another record. And that's kind of how I looked at things. I looked at things as, you know, very immediate. I didn't make plans to make, you know, 8 records. It's ironic though, when we signed with EMI, they gave us an 8-record deal, which was crazy. We're like, how many? Like 8, you're staying, which is kind of funny. But we were the only band I had ever heard of in the 90s that got an 8-record deal where they were the producers of all their material and had creative control in the contract. Like we had creative output, we had image control, everything. So we were in a unique position. But I think they were doing all that because they understood that what we were doing was different, you know, which is cool, you know. But coming out of the Marines, getting into the music business, it wasn't like I was being discovered or anything like that. In a lot of ways, I was going into a business that I had some contempt for, frankly.
Yeah. How did you not get the name the Fun that wasn't signed up and uh, uh, legally signed for, or whatever the phrase is for it these days?
Well, man, dude, the band name came from a graffiti crew in Queens, and I'd be worried for the boys in the band that these motherfuckers in Queens don't get pissed off and
Right.
like do some shit. Yeah, because it was one of those things where you don't trademark something if it's not yours.
Right.
Right. That's how I looked at it. That shit wasn't mine. I got that name from a graffiti crew in Queens that my boy was part of. That I thought that name symbolized was what we were doing musically. We were the scofflaws of Sonics or whatever you want to call it, right? And the fact that those guys went and trademarked it just goes to show that they didn't understand the whole fucking idea behind the band in the first place.
It's a lack of respect for you.
Well, no, they never had respect for me. That was obvious if they went and did that, but they just didn't understand what the fuck we were doing for the last 30 years. They thought it was something different. They thought that we were doing this for money, apparently, because that's the only reason why you would trademark the name of a band away from the guy who created the band so you could go on without him. That's the idea. And that's, I guess, what they think they're doing now.
So what kind of music are we going to expect at these big shows coming up in May then?
Well, this ain't Radiohead. I'm going to play the music that people like that I do. I'm not going to not play Creep. You know how they do that?
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know why bands do that anyway. Yeah, but I'm going to play. These are my stories that I wrote from my life. These are the songs that I wrote. It's not like I'm playing other people's music like they are. So I'm going to be playing the music that people know and love. And I'm going to be kind of trying out some new stuff that I'm putting on this new record that I'm putting out in the fall, which is kind of funny as well, being a 56-year-old guy making his debut solo record. I think that's great.
So what are they? So the new tunes. I know New York has influenced your life because you are a New Yorker, but do you still live in Bath?
I do.
Live in Bath. So is there a special love letter to Bath somewhere in the record?
Well, I don't really take those things too literally anymore like that. But I think what I'm going to be doing on this record is I'm going to be talking to people, especially people who are of my generation. I'm going to be talking to them about things that involve them, that are parts of their lives, that meet them where they are. Because I'm not going to put out Scooby Snacks Mach 2. I'm not robbing banks on Valium. I'm 56 years old.
Yeah.
I'm a man with different perspective, and I've evolved since then. I think the people who listened to my music back then deserve, like we talked about, deserve the respect that I can meet them where they are with stuff that matters to them. Not like we talk about stuff that's completely removed from the concepts of what they see every day in their lives. You want something for them to reflect their lives onto, that make a little bit of sense maybe at first, and then they can attach ideas to it, and it maybe move them in a direction that's positive. That's what I'm trying to do.
Bit of politics in there?
You know what? I've never been a political guy. I think I'm a humanist deep down. I think the idea of getting into politics right now is low hanging fruit. I think everybody does it, and I think they do it to signal their virtuous intent or their virtuous ideas, and I think that's pretentious.
Yeah. So having all these opinions and being very outspoken, which is my personal favorite thing of anybody that can can just justify why they say and they could be confident and have their own voice. Was that ever a problem working on the radio show with the BBC Music?
Well, the thing is, when I was live, I imagine it would have been more so the case. But I've been recording the show for a couple of years now. So if there's anything questionable that I send in, I'm sure the compliance guy Ferg will be like, take that out. Yeah, but I do. The show is a music show, man. What am I gonna say? Am I say what proxy wars are bad or something real general? I mean, I don't know what you'd expect me to say, dude.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, music is always. It's so powerful in it, just on a visceral level, it can put you in the best mood possible. It can make you sad. You can be in the gym and it gives you another fucking level of energy when a top song comes on and you start. Yeah. What is it about music that affects us so much, do you think?
You know what? I don't know specifically, but there's so many different things that music, like you said, does, and like Bob Marley said, when it hits, you feel no pain. I think one of the reasons that we can attach to music so much more than we can attach to other forms of art is because maybe it's more passive, frankly, that it happens to us rather than we don't have to look at something or we don't have to read something. It could be along those lines where it's something that we can maybe involve our subconscious in more.
Yeah. I think it's just one of those things that you shouldn't be able to explain as well sometimes, I think.
I'm not a scientist or anything, but I know that sometimes you get like, excuse me just a sec, you get like, you smell something, for instance, and you're like, wow, that reminds me of this. And they say the sense of smell is even more acute than the sense of hearing and whatnot.
Oh, you're there, mate.
Sorry, I was just going through a toll here.
Okay.
All right, now I'm through the toll. It's all good.
Yeah, so music is a powerful thing. It's visceral. It shouldn't be.
Well, I mean, for me, it's the thing that saved my life, frankly. And I will always have the utmost respect for it. And also, I wouldn't want to exploit it for my personal gain because I have such a respect for it, which is a thing I don't think a lot of people can say.
Yeah. So the big tour's happening, new album.
Yeah.
They all cost money, I suppose, don't they? Everything.
I just thought that was a very funny thing there.
Brilliant.
Yeah, the new album's probably going to be out in the fall along with the book. And yeah, come see me on tour. It's going to be a lot of fun. I have a great new band, so it's like these cats are interpreting the songs in a very, very special way. And there's going to be like, like whenever you see the Fun Lovin Criminals, man, I'll bring it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And what would you say to the people? I'm going to put a link so people can find tour dates easily within the description of this podcast, mate.
Yeah, HueyMorgan.com is a great place to check for anything Huey. We got a whole bunch of links there, a whole bunch of info up there. You can be part of the mailing list so we can get to you, so you don't have to check with us. So yeah, that's a great place to check for first.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I'm jumping on a flight in a week or so I'm looking forward to listening to your book as well. I'll get involved with your memoirs when that comes out. It sounds like it's going to be exciting. Was it exciting? I'll ask the question.
Well, I'll tell you, writing your memoir is kind of an emotional roller coaster. It's like when you go into a room you haven't been in 25 years, you flip the lights on, you don't get to choose what you look at. You see everything. And I think that's one of the things I didn't prepare myself for.
What was it? Just quite difficult looking back at certain parts? Or
well, yeah. I mean, I suffer from a lot of mental health issues. And one of the things that I had to overcome was a serious bout of depression and anxiety. And I have a lot of stress issues from the Marines. So these are all addressed in the book, right? And how I got better, really. And to do that, you have to go back and you have to inhabit that person. And it was painful, seeing how distressed I was at that point in my life,
Well, that's a tease for the memoirs coming out. Huey, as a fan of the band, as a bloke of a certain age, I've really through my adult life, and really appreciate you joining us today for the podcast and having a chat, mate. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
My brother, thank you for all your time and effort, my man. Thank you again. I hope to see you on the road.